Throughout history, people have met their end in ways that are tragic and sometimes almost impossible to believe. Not through war or disaster, but through strange, unexpected, and at times, almost absurd circumstances. These aren't legends or internet rumors. They're real, documented deaths that left investigators, witnesses, and sometimes the entire world stunned. This is Explainer Files, and today we open the case on 10 of the weirdest deaths ever recorded. Death by Beard, Austria, 1567. Hans Steininger was a well-known man in the small Austrian town of Braunau am Inn. But he wasn't famous for his wealth or power. He was famous for his beard. It stretched nearly 4.5 feet long, thick, well-kept, and so legendary that visitors came just to see it. He usually tied it up or rolled it to prevent accidents. On September 28, 1567, a fire broke out in the town. Chaos spread through the narrow streets as people rushed to escape the smoke. In the confusion, Hans forgot to secure his beard. As he ran down a crowded street, it fell loose. His foot caught the end of it. He tripped, fell forward onto the cobblestones, and snapped his neck on impact. He died almost instantly. Witnesses recalled the moment in disbelief. A man killed not by flames, but by his own beard. Centuries later, the beard itself was preserved in a local museum, a relic of one of history's strangest accidents. That death was accidental, but others were deliberately unforgettable. Molten gold execution, Netherlands, 1599. In 1599, a Dutch governor stood accused of theft and corruption. He had amassed a fortune in gold at the expense of the people he governed. The authorities decided that a standard execution wasn't enough. His punishment would mirror his crime. On the day of the execution, a crowd gathered. Witnesses reported how the molten gold shimmered as it was brought forward in a heavy iron pot. They forced him to kneel. Then, in a chilling display meant to symbolize greed consuming itself, they poured the molten gold down his throat. The liquid metal scorched his airway, causing catastrophic internal burns. Death was immediate. The event was retold for decades afterward, not as an act of justice, but as a cautionary tale. The thing you value most can destroy you. 4 centuries later, another man would meet his end, not through molten gold, but through something far more ordinary. Death by carrot juice, USA, 1979. Basil Brown was a British health enthusiast living in the United States. He believed deeply in the power of natural remedies. Convinced that megadosing vitamins would strengthen his body, he began consuming enormous amounts of carrot juice, 10 gallons over just 10 days. His skin began to turn orange from excess beta-carotene, but he dismissed it as proof of cleansing. What he didn't know was that the overwhelming levels of vitamin A were poisoning his liver. He collapsed at home and was rushed to hospital, where doctors determined he had suffered acute liver failure. Despite treatment, he died shortly after. His case would later be cited in medical literature as a stark example of how even the most ordinary health habits can become fatal, in excess. In Basil's case, death came quietly. In the next, it arrived in a split second. Death by hatpin, London, 1923. On a busy day in London in 1923, a man was walking through the streets with his cane. Attached to the top of the cane was a decorative hatpin, a common accessory at the time, thin and sharp. A small stumble turned deadly. He slipped backward, and the hatpin struck him in the head as he fell. It pierced his skull, causing a fatal brain injury. He was taken to a nearby hospital but died shortly after arrival. The case was widely reported in London newspapers. For many, it was a sobering reminder that even the most trivial personal items could become deadly in an instant. Exploding Coke bottle, Florida, 1992. In Florida in 1992, a man attempted to open a glass Coca-Cola bottle that had been stored in extreme heat. Pressure had built up inside the bottle to dangerous levels. When he twisted the cap, the bottle exploded in his hand. A shard of glass struck his neck, severing his carotid artery. He collapsed before emergency services could arrive. Investigators later noted that the explosion was powerful enough to send glass several feet across the room. What began as a routine action, opening a drink, became a fatal event measured in seconds. Segway Cliff Fall, United Kingdom, 2010. Jimmy Heselden was a successful British entrepreneur and the owner of the Segway Company. In September 2010, while riding a rugged model of the personal transporter on his estate in West Yorkshire, he lost control near a steep embankment. The device veered off the path and over the edge. He fell more than 30 feet into the river below and died at the scene. News of the accident spread internationally, not only because of his status, but because he had died on the product his company produced. The coroner's report later described it as a tragic and freak accident. Inventions meant to make life easier can sometimes end it without warning. The same can be said of simple household objects. Death by lava lamp, Washington, 2004. In Kent, Washington, a 24-year-old man decided to speed up the warming of his lava lamp. Instead of waiting for it to heat normally, he placed it directly on a stovetop. As the lamp heated far beyond its intended limit, pressure built up inside the sealed glass container. Without warning, it exploded. A jagged shard of glass pierced the man's chest and punctured his heart. He was found shortly after by family members, but paramedics could not save him.
I'm sorry.
Investigators confirmed that the explosion had sent fragments across the kitchen. A simple decorative object turned into a deadly projectile. This incident became a widely cited example of why even small household products can be dangerous when altered. Some deaths occur quietly. Others literally crash down. Killed by a falling cow, Brazil, 2013. In July 2013, a couple in Caratinga, Brazil, was asleep in their small home when they heard a loud crack above their bedroom. An 800-pound cow had wandered onto their roof after escaping a nearby field. The roof, made of thin tiles and wood, was never built to support that kind of weight. It gave way. The animal fell directly onto the couple's bed. The wife survived with injuries. The husband died at the scene. Local authorities described the incident as one of the strangest accidents they had ever documented. News of the tragedy spread quickly through Brazilian media, not only because of its bizarre nature, but because it highlighted how unpredictable rural accidents can be. Some accidents happen without warning. Others come from a moment of misplaced confidence. Death by window demonstration, Toronto, 1993. Gary Hoy was a respected lawyer in Toronto, known for his confidence and for the way he liked to impress guests visiting his firm's offices on the 24th floor. He often demonstrated the strength of the building's floor-to-ceiling windows by running into them at full speed. He had done it many times before. The glass never broke. But on July 9th, 1993, something different happened. The glass held, but the window frame gave way. It popped out of the structure entirely, and Hoy fell 24 floors to his death. Emergency crews arrived quickly, but there was nothing they could do. The incident became infamous across Canada, not just for its strangeness, but for how quickly a routine stunt turned fatal. And sometimes, the smallest detail can change everything. The orange peel slip. London, 1911. In 1911, a man walking through a crowded London street stepped on something small, an orange peel discarded on the pavement. He slipped backward and struck his head on the curb with tremendous force. Bystanders rushed to help, and he was taken to a nearby hospital. But the injury caused significant internal bleeding. He died shortly after. The event drew public attention to a problem that seems almost trivial: street littering. Newspapers at the time used the story as a warning, a reminder that something as small as a piece of fruit peel can end a life. Some deaths make headlines because of their scale, others because of their strangeness. A beard, a bottle, a lamp, a window. In the end, it isn't always disaster or violence that ends a life. Sometimes it's a single, unpredictable moment. These were 10 real cases. Tragic, unbelievable, and unforgettable. This is Explainer Files, and next time, we'll open another case.